Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Hive for another great day of PD. My goal here at the Hive Summit is to introduce you to people and ideas that will help launch your school year. Together, by watching, tweeting, and connecting, we are building a positive PLN that will produce some sweet results. Today's guest has an open mind towards new ideas and new experiences. She loves the details and has an eye for them. As an educator and as a mom, she encourages us all to tackle our cannonball moments. She doesn't only have her finger on the pulse of education, she has her finger on the heart of it. Her book challenges us all to be real with ourselves and the company we keep. Her message, her story, will have you moving towards living more authentically by keeping it real, both at school and out of school. It is my pleasure and honor to welcome to the Hive Summit, Tara Martin. Welcome, Tara.
Hi, Michael. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be among the educators that are going to be participating as listeners and as contributors in this Hive Summit. Thank you so much for having me.
It's our pleasure. I'm so excited to get this Hive Summit underway and have you be a part of it. Thank you so much for bringing your message. I hope today you've also brought a copy of your book that you can kind of hold up, as it is like fresh off the press here this summer.
I do. Conveniently, I have a bunch of them I've been mailing out. And so super excited about the book and the journey of writing the book. I'm a writer anyway. I love to write. I write in my journal every single day. But writing a book was a new challenge. It was very difficult and exciting and more than I thought it would be as far as, putting your thoughts out into the world. It's kind of scary, but it's super exciting too.
No, I mean, it's not easy to write a book, to put all your thoughts down, to organize it, and to really share a piece of yourself with the world and kind of serve it up for, both the compliments, but also the critiques. So
it is. It's challenging. I think I love talking to other authors because I feel like they get it. And, honestly, before I wrote a book, I was kind of critical of books. I love to read so much. And I'd be like, why did they put alliteration right there? Like, why weren't they using figurative? That was a perfect place for figurative language. And now I'm like, now I never judge writers ever. Sorry for all that I used to critique. I mean, I nod to their face, just, as you're reading. But it's a journey, and it's amazing if that is your mouthpiece to share your message. I think by all means you should do it. I don't know that everyone is a writer, and not everyone uses that mouthpiece to share their message. But my why, being relatable, exposing vulnerability, always approachable, and learning through life. I love to write. It's been like my best friend since I was a second grader. As soon as I learned to read, I learned to write. And I found that was the outlet for me. And I've written in a journal every single day since. So it was a great mouthpiece for me. It was just super scary to put it out there to the world. But I love it. And I'm excited about the feedback that I'm getting from others.
So, I mean, on that point, right, about like taking the risk, sharing a bit of yourself here in the book, from my understanding, that's really kind of a big message in the book, is to, be who you are.
Totally. The book shares a lot of stories from my point of view, but I've pulled in stories from the PLN, from, I like to call them my PL family, and lots of different relatable, exposing vulnerability, always approachable, learning through life experiences. But not only that, how that others can bring their realness. So to me, if each of us embrace who we are, all of our strengths and talents, all of our passions, all of our fantastic ideas, and we bring all those things, and all of the yucky experiences that have also happened in our lives, those things that we learned from those things, and life, just things that have happened to you that you didn't ask for, all of that makes up you. And the coolest thing about that is that technology cannot recreate that. It's impossible. It can't recreate that for like billions of people. There's just no way. And so that's what being real is all about. If we just embrace who we are, making us this wonderful creation. And everyone does that. We have this like world of awesomeness, and everyone is, you know, embracing their realness and bringing that all to the table. I mean, who wouldn't want to live in a world like that where diversity is welcomed and our real is enough? We don't have to try to be something that we're not, especially in a world where things like fake news and polishing your face and whatever you do to make yourself look the part. Um, that seems to be the norm. But what if we just all brought our realness and we just all became the best version of ourselves? That's
Yeah.
what Be Real is all about.
I love that message, that concept, that idea of kind of the uniqueness that we all are. That you are sort of the sum total of your experiences. Whether that's from what you read, what you've done, where you've been, who you've been around, all these things. But it is uniquely you. No one else has that exact perspective, that exact sort of set of skills, talents, things to draw from.
Yeah,
And I think your message of being more comfortable about being who you are instead of trying to be somebody you're not, whether that's that polished version, whatever, but like you should just be you, because like you offer so much to the world, and like you're an expert on that position, that view.
agreed. I think everyone has a purpose, and I think their purpose is to bring all of who they are. I mean, to serve their purpose, they need to be who they are, because that is something that comes naturally for you, for one. And it's also what people relate to you. I know a lot of times people will say, Tara, you are just out there crazy, but I love it. Like, I don't know why, but I connect to you. But it's because I'm not trying to pretend to be something I'm not. Like I don't have a poker face ever. Like I would suck so bad at that game because I'm like, oh, like everything. I'm the living emoji. But I love that because that's me. And I don't have to pretend that I'm okay with what you're saying when I'm clearly not, or
Well,
vice versa.
I think that like you bring up a really good point there too about emotions. I think a lot of times that is what as adults we try to always keep in check. And then I think when you keep those emotions kind of in a little box, man, that can really like sort of stint your sort of happiness and your impact that you have in the communities that you're part of.
Totally. I completely agree. I think it kind of fits in the exposed vulnerability in my book and to being relatable too. I love it when students can I feel like I'm the Pied Piper of kids. Like every time I walk into Walmart, they just like come up to me and I'm like, oh, hey, how's it going? And it was always like that when I taught elementary. So it was always like that working in the elementary schools as well. But I love that. I love that I don't even have to tell them that I was a teacher. Like there's something they feel. It's this emotion. It's like a heart to heart connection that they just feel safe to walk up and talk to you, and you're not scary. And so being relatable, there's so many ways we can do that as adults, but we need to model that for students because they should feel comfortable coming up to us and being like, I don't understand what the heck is going on here. And I know all my friends are getting it, but I just don't get it. So I talk a little bit about strategies to be relatable. If it's not coming natural for us, then how do we kind of make it happen?
Well, what
And
are some of those strategies then, here?
so it can be lots of things, but I talk a little bit about in my book, I talk about the real plus the innovator's compass. So Ella Ben created this innovator's compass, and it helps people get unstuck. So when they have an idea and they're just kind of stuck on it, this compass kind of walks them through some questions that helps them to get unstuck and just cannonball in on a big idea. Well, I took the compass idea and created relationship type questions. So when I'm meeting someone for the first time, when I was serving instructional coaches, I would ask them, like, who do you serve? Like, it's all about the people in the center of the compass. And then if you work your way around, you kind of ask them, like, you're trying to discover what is their current reality. How do you help them personally and professionally? What are they feeling right now? And it's very open-ended questions. You don't necessarily have enough degrees to answer all of them, but you're gaining information to be able to serve them. So if you move up on the compass, I ask them, what makes you feel like you just rock the day? And the reason I ask kids or adults those kinds of questions, because I want to know what they value. And when I know what they value, when things aren't going well that day, I can maybe provide some of those things. Like if it's structure, I can give that to them. If it's coffee and chocolate for my coaches, I can bring that to them. Whatever it is that makes them feel like they just rock the day, I want to try to provide that when things are going rough. And then if you work your way around the compass, talk a little bit about what are your big juicy dreams, those dreams that you've yet to create or those dreams that you've yet to accomplish, but you want to so bad, be it personally or professionally. And people were telling me, like the coaches, the girls were telling me stuff like they wanted to adopt a kid. They've never even told anyone that. So it was personal things, and they wanted to get their doctorate or whatever it was that they were working on. So how can I serve you and how can I help you in some of those areas? The last question is just what will you cannonball in the water to try in the next day, month, year? What is it? List it down, write it down and list it down. And so we wrote them down, and it was amazing. A couple of months later, these girls and kids, like we did this with kids too, they were like, I can't believe that was my current reality 2 months ago. Like, I'm not even worried about that anymore. But then on their dreams and on their cannonball in activities, they were crossing things off. They're like, I already did that. I'm working toward my master's now. I'm already enrolled now. So we're
Sure.
getting there. So I think the compass really helped us just focus our thoughts and write some things down and make ourselves accountable. But there's so many easy ways to smile. I mean, whatever it is, hugs, smiles, high fives when kids walk in the door. Also asking them a humble inquiry. I love that because I think Facebook does a good job of this, but it just says, what are you thinking? I love just asking kids, what are you thinking? How's it going today?
Yeah, I think so. Trying to break down a little bit about what you just said. So
a lot of stuff.
that was a lot. Like you sort of fire hosed us on that, and I just want to make sure everyone.
How do we be relatable?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like you definitely you wrote a book. There's a lot of things swimming around in your head about this. So, I mean, really, if I was to tie everything you just sort of set up, it is about listening. I mean, right? Like it's that empathy piece. Like if you really want to relate to somebody, you have to know their needs, their wants, their concerns, their fears, all those things. And so the more sort of, I don't know if information's the right word, but the more you can understand where they're coming from, the more relatable you can be.
Totally. I talk about the real talk treasures in the relatable section too. Starts with humble inquiry, which I just talked about. Asking the right questions is huge too. Not only listening, but asking questions that are non-judgmental so that when you're listening, you can listen to learn because they're not regurgitating what you want them to say. So I do think that listening is a huge piece and listening to learn is a part of that. But I think valuing them as an individual, all of their uniqueness, and then asking that humble inquiry. There's no, I'm trying to fish out a perfect answer from you. I really just want to know. And then listening to learn. I think that in the order of my Real Talk Treasure Map, that's kind of the way that it works. And I do think that's super helpful for learning more about the people you serve. If we don't know what they need, it's hard to serve them.
All right, so kind of like pushing that concept. So now like you have that information. If you're really like humbly listening, you're not just queued up with your next question or whatever. You're not looking for that right answer. Moving beyond that, you obviously, I think to truly show that you care, you should probably do something with that information.
Yeah, totally,
right?
Totally. So in the same place, so the very next step in the Real Talk Treasure is to empower the person you're talking to like act on some of these things. So your next questions for them after you're listening to them and you're learning some things about them, like, how can I better serve you to do this? Like, so you want to accomplish this goal? what can I do? How can I support you? And then what are you going to do? We're both going to have some kind of action and move toward this, right?
Hmm.
And then providing some accountability. How about I check back in a couple of weeks or in a month and see how it's going? If you need more support, I'm right here to help you. Like, I'm going to help you. We're going to jump in together. But then also, once they accomplish the goal, or they act on this idea and they create something,
Yeah.
openly exalting them, like put them in front of people, put them out on Twitter, share them with an authentic audience. Look what they just did. It's not about me, but it's about them. And I think the more you can do that, that last step of openly exalting those people that are taking these risks and trying these things, the more they're going to want to cannonball in and keep trying.
Well, what
Warning.
I
So
love too that you just did, so right, you talked about listening, but then you talked about encouraging them to move towards action, but then you also said like I'm going to be here with you in that risk. So not only did you support them to like go take the risk, which I think a lot more administrators are starting to be okay with that. I think there's still some that aren't, but I think a lot are saying like go try stuff. But then the other huge piece though you said is you'll be there to support them through that. And then when they do, when they ultimately, hopefully, find some treasures along the way and have something that's super awesome and that they're excited and proud about, you're going to sort of amplify that voice with them, you know, because you are equally proud of them as they are proud of what they created.
totally. And I think it works really well with children too. It doesn't have to, I did this with adults, but it works with children as well. I mean, kids love to be openly exalted. Like when they accomplish something, they're telling you about it. They want you to tell people about it too. And I agree. I think there are times, though, Michael, where I talk about the cannonball in theory in my book too. It's my favorite thing to live by. But there are times where you just have to run on the diving board and you just have to jump. Like you have no clue what's about to happen, but you know how to swim. So you're just going to do it. But there are times where I think you just hold the hand of a kid and maybe you're on a wider diving board and you say, hey, how about this first one? We jump together.
Sure.
Or maybe you're on the small one and they're on the big one and you're like, or vice versa. And we're going to jump at the same time. I'm going to be out there in the water with you. So I'm not going to judge you. Like we're both going to be fighting for our breath. We're both going to be swimming to the top. We're both going to have an experience that we can talk about of how we accomplished this goal. And I think there are times where you just have to jump with them and then later empower them to jump on their own.
Well, I mean, I think throughout history we see that, right? That like this group, this tribe, whatever you want to call it, like mentality, like the same reason we're talking about being part of PLNs too, or, you know, there's such a strong support to push you through those moments. And you're right, that getting started moment, that cannonball moment where you could either say like, no, I'm going to walk to the back of the diving board and
Just going to climb back
climb back down.
down.
But like we all want to go off the diving board. We know that's where like the change happens. We know that's where the excitement happens. We know that's where the breakthroughs happen. That's where the big splashes happen. But what we also are afraid of, like we also know that's where the belly flop happens.
Exactly.
And
And it happens. Like
but
you
but
belly flop sometimes.
but knowing that it's going to be okay. Knowing that there are people there to hold your hand through that, to like encourage you to next time sort of tuck in a little more than you did last time, so that you can have that success. I think that's important. And you know, it sounds like when you were an administrator, you took that role very seriously to encourage, to support, but to also walk with as they're moving through this new experience.
Totally. In fact, we used the compass that I was talking about earlier with the goals meetings. It was great because I loved using that to talk about how they were accomplishing new tasks and also more risk. I mean, I think my coaches took a lot of risk last year. Many of them started their own website. They all joined Twitter. Like it was just a lot of new things for them. Most of them, all of them ended up speaking at a conference by the end of the year, which was also something they were super excited and wanting to try. So I think the more that we can go alongside with them, and I was at their sessions, I tried to be at all their sessions to encourage them, give them feedback and cheer them on and be like, oh my gosh, tweeting it out, like sharing with the world. Look what these girls are doing and sharing. And so I think it's important as leaders, as teachers, as mentors of anyone, students or educators, that we are making sure to share with them and jump with them, and then sometimes just sit back and exalt their awesomeness and share with the world. I think it's super important that we do that part.
What I like there is it just reminds me kind of well, I'll just say this. You remind me of being very youthful as well. Like the message there is a child typically asks, why not? Why not do this? Why can't we? You know, right? So, but when we get to become an adult, sometimes we temper that attitude with just a bunch of like, well, I can't, or it's always been this way, or I don't do that. I don't present at conferences. That's somebody else. And like, I think powerful questions to ask ourselves is why not you? Why not now? Why not here? If it's about like your building or your district or your whatever, your life, like those three questions, I think can start to unlock some of our potential. Cause like, why not present? Like, or why not try that new thing? You know?
Totally. I agree. I'm that way all the time. Especially if people tell me I can't. I'm like, "Oh, okay. Just game that's game on right there. Don't tell me I can't." Because it's about to get crazy. I love a challenge. I mean, it's one of my favorite things to do is just issue challenges and let's try this and let's dive in. I think that's why the cannonball in theory fits me so well. I describe it very vividly in my book. That's one of my happiest memories with my father is going to the city pool and just learning to jump off the diving board. It was, I was so terrified of the water. And my dad taught me to swim, but I just would stare at all the jumpers. And I love to watch the cannonballers. My dad was the best cannonballer ever. Like he always splashed the pretty lifeguards. And I wanted to be like that, but I was so scared to go over there. And eventually I just did it. He came and helped me and encouraged me to go up on the diving board and jump. And I'd back down a few times and had to wait in the long line again, try it again. But after it became a way of hanging out at the city pool. I was not going to lose my joy over critics, over the dabblers sitting on the side that criticize every single jump. I was not going to lose my joy and
Whoa,
just
you gotta
hang.
explain. You gotta explain the dabblers.
Totally, totally. So, yeah, so jumping off the diving board is scary, right? So you just run and jump in. So I cannonballed in the first time, and I remember the pretty girls sitting on the side, the beautiful girls, they're just dry, their hair's perfect, makeup, whatever. And they were, and I was feeling like a rock star. I mean, I just jumped into the water, scared to death, fighting for every breath, swim up to the top. I nearly lost my swimsuit bottoms, because it just happens when you cannonball. And swimming to the side, and I thought, you know what? I may not have made the hugest wave, but I made waves. And I did that. Like I was feeling like a rock star. And I climb out to hear the dabblers. Really, that's all you got? Like that's your best splash? And I was like, dang, yeah. It was. I mean, I weighed like 60 pounds. I don't know how much I weighed. I was a little girl. And they said, you nearly lost your swimsuit. Like we saw your behind. And I'm like, oh my God. Like I got to go back to the shallow and hang out there where it's safe. But I decided no. Like if you notice, the dabblers are the critics that are not jumping in. They're not in the water and they're not fighting with you. It's kind of like what I talked about earlier when I was talking about the book. I used to be critical and say, oh man, why didn't they use alliteration here? But wait a second, I wasn't a writer. I wasn't a real writer. I wasn't writing a book. I have no grounds to criticize. If you're not in the arena, if you're not in the water, if you're not fighting for your next breath, then those aren't people we should listen to because they're not jumping.
Mm-hmm.
But what we should do, here's what we should do. We should splash so big that we mess up their hair and makeup and make them just want to get in with us. I don't think we should be hateful and rude. I think we should just keep splashing until eventually we soak them and they want to get in with us because there's so much joy and so much excitement they don't want to miss out. And that's the same with kids. I think they can perpetuate that kind of excitement when their teacher's trying all these new things and they're like, oh my gosh, they're telling all the other teachers, you should totally be cannonballing in like this teacher because we are swimming over here. We're making waves. Like, you need to come over here and make waves with us. So the cannonball in theory has just been something I've just decided to live by. I still get the dabblers in my life. They come around a lot, but most of the time they aren't jumping with me. So I just decided I'm not going to listen to them.
Yeah, but I think that that's a good thing for us all to keep in mind here, before we start our new 2018-2019 school year, that, we're all going to have dabblers. We're all going to have people that tell us we can't, whether it's, our colleagues, whether it's, people on Twitter or whatever, or whether it's a comment on your blog. People are going to say you can't do that. But I often think about people that truly are innovators, people that inspire me to do my work. Up to the point of them being successful, like all the dabblers are right, because it's never happened, because it doesn't, no one's done it. So yeah, it's easy to say you can't do it because it's never been done before. But I'm trying to do something that's never been done before. And then I think about the other quote, and I forget who it's by, but the one that those that, are in the process of doing, we shouldn't stop them. Don't get in their way. They're the ones doing it. So, dabblers, that's the easy route. It's easy to sort of criticize. It's easy to sort of critique. It's hard to create.
Yeah. I think if you can win a dabbler though, if you can get them to cannonball in with you, I mean, that's when some real waves start. That's when you start making real waves. It's one thing to do these innovations on our own and just keep doing them for our students. And I think we should keep doing that. But I love it when the splash is so big, we just soak them and they decide, you know what, I'm going to go do what they're doing. They are having way too much fun and I want to join in.
Agreed.
And that's like fuel to my fire. As a coach, that was always, as an instructional coach, that was always my goal, is to win the naysayers. Come on, I got to win them. I didn't leave out the ones that were on board. I just loved winning them and then it was all about, if you win them, openly exalting all of the awesome things that they are trying.
Exactly.
And it goes right back to that, because you want to say, look at this, look what they did. It's not about me, even though I did soak them and that's why they're cannonballing in, but it's all about them, and that's where it keeps going, and that's when you start to create this movement of innovation.
Yeah, I was going to say, you really start to create change when you get others, when you inspire others towards action. And then, like you said, you have to be really careful in that moment, because while your action might have been the initial spark, this now new moment, the thing that they created, the thing that they've done, that is them. I mean, that is all them. That was their cannonball moment. And they built a lesson. They tried some new pedagogy, whatever it is, join Twitter. But that's their moment, right? And I love your point about if you're a true believer, if you're truly trying to make that change, create that splash, create that wave, we gotta give credit where credit's due. And in that moment, it is the brave soul that tried that new thing.
Dude, I just thought of something. This is so crazy. You might cut this out of the video, but I gotta say it.
Anyways, I will.
What if, you just keep creating? I didn't write this in my book, but I love it. And you had everyone around the sides of the deep end. We all are going to cannonball in at the same time. I mean, we would put water out of the pool. Think of the splash that you create when you get all the dabblers and all the swimmers involved in this cannonball action. We're all fighting for our next breath, but we made waves, but we changed the way people viewed the city pool. We changed the way people viewed education and learning for students. I mean, that's what we ultimately want, this massive collective cannonball. That's a tidal wave.
I love it. I love your face there. That's just so expressive. So I think a good lesson that we're all learning here at the Hive Summit is, just like swimming, when you're talking about doing something different in your class, bring somebody with you.
Exactly. I love it.
That's good.
Yeah.
So, okay. So we have this.
What were we talking about?
So we have this cannonball theory. which I think totally fits. Like I said, this conference, this idea of like getting out there, trying new things. You have heard new things at this conference, attendees. Um, you know, go or you either have heard or you're about to hear. Like watch some of the other videos. Try some of these things, right? Because it's about that action. It's about moving towards action on this stuff. In your book, you also describe this idea of this. I love this sort of analogy about salt. Can you like
Oh my
share a
God.
little bit about that? Because
So in the book, I compare real is like REAL or is like the four chambers of the heart. And so I talk about how we have to lead from the heart. And when we are relatable, exposing vulnerability, always approachable, and learning through life, we are truly connecting in a way that I personally feel that technology can never replicate. And so it's all about this heart connection with students, with staff, with the people we work with. Well, that is my why. That is what I want to be as a mom, as a friend, as an educator, as an administrator, as a DBC awesome employee, which is my new role. And I want to be real no matter what I'm doing. But I think it's important that we season the world with our realness, or we season the world with heart healthy salt. So I don't know about you, but I love salt. I love to put it
me
on my
too.
chips. I love to put it on everything. Not too much. I'm a little too salty for some, but not too much, but just a little. Um, but season the world with heart healthy salt. So those are your whats. So heart healthy salt for me is my writing, speaking, having coffee with a friend, encouraging my son. Heart healthy salt is the what to help people to understand the why. And I think every single individual in this world, all billions of us, we all have our individual realness, our what's, our why. And we have to season the world. We have to share those things by salting the world to find out more about our realness, our why. And so it's super important to me that everyone has their unique flavors and they bring them to this collective whole, because how wonderfully that would taste if you wanted to keep that analogy. But it's so important that we do season the world. We let them know, like, this is it's the seasoning is like the inspiration. So if you think about it like this, Martin Luther King was the best at this to me. He inspired people to believe his dream, right? That was his why.
Hmm.
He talked, he preached, he spoke to people, he shared his heart message, and he didn't demand people to believe his why. He inspired them. He sprinkled his salt out there, and people wanted to taste more of it. They loved it. They wanted to believe in this dream as well. So he was so great at this. But that's how I want to be. I don't want to force realness down people's throat, but I want to live it. I want to inspire. I want to season the world with all my what's so people can see the realness that they also behold. So they can understand my why, and they would also want to embrace that for themselves.
I love it, and I think that sort of imagery or analogy towards salt is really good because the I love to cook. So this
Yeah,
idea that
you're an awesome cook.
this idea that salt brings out the natural flavor in whatever you're eating. So like to think about like us being real in the world, bringing our talents, salting the earth, the sort of natural beauty of the earth is going to come out. Like the it's going to be a better place when we all sort of bring ourselves in an authentic way. I think that's quite beautiful.
I mean, it's like that's the best flavor, right? When you have all of the different, if we only had salt, like my salt, it wouldn't taste very well, but everyone's seasoning the world with their realness.
I love this.
That's so I absolutely love talking in metaphors and learning in metaphors. It just sticks with me.
It does.
So sorry.
I love talking in metaphors as well. Sorry if if you guys are sick of hearing my metaphors, but I just think it provides a nice picture in our mind and it sticks. I like it. Now, everyone I think should already know this book's out. It's big. It's a big splash. It's going well. But before you ever wrote that book, you did a whole nother thing that kind of got you, I guess, maybe started on this whole crazy adventure. But can you talk a little bit about Book Snaps and where that
Book
came from?
Snaps. Yeah, Book Snaps was my first Cannonball In experience on the connected world. Not my first Cannonball In experience ever, but in the connected world, I had just met George Couros, so I had joined Twitter, and before that, I only followed Adam Levine, and that's it. I had a Twitter account, but I didn't really. I had to hack into it to get my my username and password. I only followed one person. I didn't have any followers. But George kind of taught me how to use it for education. And so then I had two followers. I had George, and then my husband actually followed me because he's just so sweet. And I was reading one day. My son at that time was 15 years old, and he just loves Snapchat. I don't know if you work with teenagers, but they're like
They're glued to it.
selfies all the time, and driving me bonkers. And so finally, I said, you know what, Caleb, this app has got to go. Like, we got to get this off your phone. It's driving me crazy. And he said to me, how am I supposed to connect with my friends? Like, this is how we communicate. How did you and Dad communicate? Back in the day.
No.
How did you communicate, Michael?
Oh,
Come
man.
on. Say you stretch the phone
Stretch the
cord
phone,
all
the
the way.
cord in the kitchen, like super long
Shut
one.
yourself in the washroom for hours, hoping nobody can hear you. So I started thinking about this. This is a way of connecting for kids. I need to figure out a way to use this for edu-awesomeness. And it didn't come to me right away, but I was reading in my book, my new book that I had at that time, the only DBC book I owned at that time, because George's hadn't come in yet. I ordered it. But I had Teach Like a Pirate. And I was reading it, and I thought, I was writing notes and, drawing pictures on it, highlighting the crap out of it. And finally, I had this idea. What if I took the app, took a picture of my book, and then recreated the imagery happening in my mind with Bitmojis and emojis, like a language kids love. And I could annotate with the text feature. And I was like, this is brilliant. I mean, of course, I thought it was brilliant because it's my idea. And I always think they were brilliant at that moment. And so I called Caleb down to come teach me how to use Snapchat. He's like, that's not for old people. Like, he was so frustrated. But he came and taught me. And I told him what I wanted to do. And he was like, Mom, you're the ultimate nerd, but whatever. By the way, he makes book snaps now. It's fine. But at the moment, he thought it was pretty crazy. And so when I made one, what am I going to do with it? Well, I'm going to send it out to the world. I want somebody to see it.
Yeah.
And it was August. Nobody was in school yet. It was the beginning of August. So I sent it out to Twitter. But then I started worrying, Michael, like about copyright. I was like, like, I just took a picture of a book. I just put it out into the world. I mean, who cares that I only had 2 followers? I didn't even think about that. I was just like, I'm going to go to copyright jail. Turns out you won't go to copyright jail. So if you're making book snaps, you are safe. I promise. I've checked it all out now. But at that moment, I hadn't checked it out when I sent it out to Twitter. And so I tagged Dave Burgess. And I was like, wow, he's on Twitter. I didn't even know, but I looked at the author because I was trying to cite it, right? So I found him, tagged it, and I put the title of the book and when it was published. I think I even put like the published date behind it because it was like maybe they'll feel sorry for me if this really is against copyright. I sent it out and I add the hashtag because Georgia taught us all about hashtags. So it was like hashtag book snaps. And I put an S on it. Like now I would not put an S on it because most people post one at a time and they have to say, you like my book snaps? And it's like one. It's okay. I didn't know what I was doing. I just threw it out there. And so I thought, okay, that was fun. But then a few minutes later, I get this notification on my phone. Dave Burgess is commenting on your tweet. And I'm like, what? He's a real person.
He's a real person.
The pirate lives. And so I like, oh gosh, I hope he likes it. He was like, this is the coolest thing. What is this? And then I'm trying to explain all this in 140 characters. Well, you can only imagine how that was. And I'm like, I hope it isn't against copyright. At that moment, I didn't even know he was a publisher. I just knew he was the author of this book. And he loved it. And so, what happens when when you tell a kid that you love something? What do they do?
Boom, you fired off a million more, didn't you?
Much more.
You totally
I
did.
started stop and stop and stop and stop it. Book snaps, book snaps. Tag Dave Bridges. Well, about a month and a half later, he asked me to write on his blog. And that's how people got their eyes on book snaps for the first time. And I thought that was really crazy. And I was like in awe. And I couldn't believe I was going to be writing on the Pirates blog. But he amplified my voice. We were talking about exalting, cannonball in moments. Dave didn't know that he didn't know he was fitting in my analogy, but he did. That is what he did. He took this idea that was hidden in my blog with 2 followers and my Twitter account with 2 followers, and he took it and amplified it and sent it out to the world with billions of followers and maybe not billions, but it feels like it. And all these people get to see it. And he says, look at this cool idea that this girl cannonballed in and made this little splash, but he made it a much bigger splash. And what happened was teachers started figuring things out. Like, I can use the science snaps, social studies snaps, every kind of snap imaginable. But when they're allowing kids to share their thinking in a digital visual representation and not putting parameters on it, but letting kids connect in a real, authentic way. And it was beautiful. There are 17 countries that now use all the different kinds of snaps that
That's
started
awesome.
from snaps. And I never knew the splash would be that big. And really, it probably wouldn't have if if Dave Bridges hadn't saw this idea and went ahead and helped me make a much bigger splash by amplifying this cannonball in moment. And so,
but I'd go and challenge you a little bit. Like, it wouldn't have happened if you didn't do it.
exactly. Like, think about all the ideas we don't cannonball in on. And I'm telling you what, once he put it out there, it was work. I had a billion tweets to comment on, and I loved sharing. They were exposing vulnerability. They were practicing the real message with their book snaps, these kids and teachers. So I wanted to give them real feedback. Wow, thank you for sharing. This is incredible. And it was work. It wasn't something where I just sat back and it just grew and grew. I had to find the science behind it because everybody wanted to know that, and I had no idea. I just jumped in, started swimming like a mad woman. So I learned the science behind it. Why was this working? Why were kids able to remember what they snapped? And, when we speak a kid's language and we allow them to connect in a real way, it's incredible how much they take the content and they apply it in a way that's meaningful, and it lodges into their long-term memory. And there's real science behind it. I explain it a lot in my book. And what's really cool, Michael, is people started sharing all kinds of real connections. I call them the untold stories, the untold book snap stories in my book. And that is an impact I never dreamt that little cannonball in moment would ever create. I was just trying to solve a problem, keep the app on my kid's phone, and it became something so much more amazing.
But in that story, you're telling us about several things that I think we need, well, not need, but we should take the time to sort of think about and possibly apply to our own lives. Like, one, you saw your son using snaps, or not book snaps, but just Snapchat all the time. So you kind of wanted to figure out a way to use that in class, right? And all of us see kids all the time doing things, and instead of saying how can I get that out of my class, you sort of said, how can I meet the student where they're at, right? So
right, relatable.
A couple of years ago, right, it was the fidget spinners, right? And there was
bottle tossing,
and there were teachers that tried to ban that and get that out. And there were other teachers that were saying how could I use this in my class, right? And there were
totally
math teachers that you had to solve so many math problems before the fidget spinner would stop, little things like that. But it sort of it meets them where they're at, and it's again another example of being relatable and like understanding where they're at. They want to talk about this, to do this, to use this, so building it kind of in, genius. The other thing I liked about your story is it was another example of a cannonball moment for you. I mean, you put it out there, you didn't know, and but you had this idea, it was relatable to kids, and then you decided to take that extra step and share it. I think a lot of times we miss that, right? We miss that part. We try so hard to do everything for our kids, but then we don't think about how like there's a wider community out there that might need those same ideas. And so taking that extra step to share it. Now, I mean, in the concept of a book snap, you want to share it anyways.
Yeah.
But I know that through your work, you do that anyways. Like you would share out, like you said, you want to exalt the things and the people around you who do good things. So
Totally. And I think you need to share your idea because collectively we can come up with a better one. I hadn't thought of math snaps or science snaps or every other kind of snap. And so when we got more eyes on it, they came up with so many cool ideas. And the kids are coming up with them. And the kids actually started, so I started Google hanging out with kids, and it just became so huge. Like they guest blog on my blog. You can go find lots of blogs of book snaps and them sharing why you should read their book that they're writing about. But they started teaching me all kinds of cool ideas and ways to create a better snap and link it up with the Amazon link of the book and all these crazy, amazing things. So when you share, you actually add more brains to your idea and it becomes way better.
you start to create the wave. I mean, you
The big
really,
splash.
the biggest splash, you really do. And I guess like that's the other thing I want to sort of point out and just sort of remind us all. You hustled. Like once this thing took off, you didn't just sit back. I mean, you answered all sorts of people's, snaps. Like you said, whole classrooms started to do this as activities, and you commented on all those. You started to have kind of I forget what you call it. There's like a snap day that you did.
The Book Snaps Challenge in May.
Book snap challenge in May, like
It's intense.
it's intense, and you like go through and you really try to like add value to that space, which is just it's really commendable. And like I said, it's something that I think we all appreciate you adding that for us. But just again being a good example though of hustling and like putting action behind those ideas.
And I love the student connection. I think sometimes in an administration, I was in the buildings every week, but sometimes it's hard to get in with kids. And so this is a great way to just go in and check and comment on their snaps, or, we've put them out on our marquees in the front of the building. So if they make them in Google Slides, because you can make them in any app, it doesn't have to be Snapchat. Now, all the resources will be on my link. Go check it out. There's every kind of app imaginable to make book snaps. But we've made them on Google Slides, and it just scrolls in the lunchroom and in the front of the school, all the book snaps that they made that week. And people are getting ideas for wanting to read those books. So you're promoting literacy. You're also amplifying their voice and their realness and how they're connecting to the text. So you're letting them share their real, exposing vulnerability. Some of those kids were like, I lost my father too, just like this character in my book. And that's their book snap. And you didn't know that about that kid, but you learned some new things about some of your friends. And so it was a lot of cool things that came out of book snaps that I had no idea when I first made the little splash.
That's fantastic. And I think, like I said, it's such a powerful story to hear that you did that, and that I guess that it's within reach for all of us to do that and make that same sort of difference when we think about being relatable and connecting to what the students want and where they're at, and sort of meeting that need, and then hustle.
Anytime. Yeah, I know. Work your tail off. Yeah, you're not going to just sit back and everything's just going to happen. But one of the things too, Michael, it's just any time we're allowing kids to connect in a real way, whatever that activity is, doesn't have to be book snaps, but we need to make space and be intentional and making space for them to be able to connect to each other. Be it sharing out on Padlet, gamifying your classroom. Like you have all these cool strategies too, where they learn things about each other. I think That's super important. It's not only important because they become a family, but it's also important because they learn to respect the differences of each other. And that is how we're going to create this beautiful, flavorful world, right? Where everybody can bring their realness and they don't have to try to be the next person because we are allowing them space to value the individuality of everyone. So whatever that activity is, share them out, put them underneath this video and let us know, how do you allow students to connect in real ways? We're not talking about trying to meet a standard at this moment. We're talking about being intentional and allowing them to connect and be relatable, exposing vulnerability, approachable, and learning through life.
I think that's a perfect spot to sort of end our chat here for the Hive Summit. Thank you so much for being real with us today and sharing your time and talent with us. I know for sure it's going to inspire educators to sort of have that real year this year and make this a difference, like I said, for their classroom as well as their wider community. Because when they bring themselves, I think they're going to be kind of that best version then.
That's awesome. Also, Michael, I would love to share the link where I have a link on my website where they can read the first 3 chapters of my book for free.
We'll put that in the resources down
Yeah.
below. So
And so you can check it out and give me some feedback,
check
even if
out
you don't buy
that.
the book.
We can also have links to some of the book snap links you talked about. So we'll make sure
Totally.
all of those are down below for you guys. And I wanted to also say, just as a sort of extra shout out to another Hive presenter, in your book are some awesome sketches, and
Yeah.
those
We should share
sketches
one.
happen to come from another Hive presenter.
Oh my gosh.
I'm
Carrie Bacham, this has been an amazing journey, but I loved her sketches from the time I met her at ISTE the year before. And I said, hey, this is crazy, but I'm going to write a book and I want you to sketch it. So I literally sent every chapter to her and she just got to, and I didn't put parameters on. I'm like, just sketch whatever comes to your mind. And she made the most beautiful illustrations in my book. I hired her as an artist. And then we had a graphic designer as well that ended up helping us. But oh, they're so beautiful. You can see after each part, there's a beautiful sketch note. And then there are lots of black pages where she shares just a quote and a beautiful sketch. So between Carrie creating all the sketches and my editing and graphic designing team from Dave Burgess Consulting creating all of the, arranging everything in the book, it's just beautiful. So not only could you read and learn all these cool ideas, you get these beautiful visuals, which I am so visual. So it worked out wonderfully. And they just carried owned it.
Yeah, so I want to make sure everyone knows that Carrie is going to be a presenter here. She is fantastic. Carrie Bacham. She's got a YouTube channel. Make sure you check on the resources there and subscribe to her YouTube channel. Her Twitter handle's heck awesome.
And she is heck
She is
awesome.
just a fantastic person. So, everyone, thank you so much for taking time out of your summer to be here at the Hive in our first Hive Summit. I'm excited. It's going really well. You guys are doing a great job tweeting out and sharing stuff out. So, continue to do that. If you happen to be one of those people that are artistic and want to do some sketch noting, or if you're somebody that's wanting to be taking a cannonball moment here and maybe do your first sketch note, we're using the hashtag SketchHive for all of our Hive sketch notes. So share those out. We all would love to see them. And don't forget to also tag or hashtag just the Hive Summit so everyone gets to see it as well. That's all we have for today. So let's make sure we remember to be mindful, to be awesome, and most importantly for me, to be in motion. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you.